Hey, 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 travel brats. Happy Travel Brat Tuesday. It's Soph.
And Nat. And today, Sophia, I'm going to share with you and our travel brats about a solo travel day that I took in the beautiful city of Mechelen, Belgium. Now, you were asking me how to pronounce this, and it is strange because it's spelled in a way that, especially an American looking at it, might think, "Oh, there could be so many different ways you could pronounce this." And of course, in the way that people who say it that live there, they would say Mechelen or some kind of version of that. I'm probably still butchering it. But for the average English speaker, we can just say Mechelen. So that's how I will refer to it.
Or you can go around sounding like you literally have problems going, Mechelen. Welcome to
Mechelen.
Mechelen. I'll stay away from that. That I would get too carried away for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So I was actually visiting my sister, who we've talked about on this podcast before. She and her family live in Brussels, and they were having their third baby a couple months ago, little Noah, my nephew. So he was born in January, and I was there for a little over 2 weeks to be with them for his birth and to help with the other kids, my niece and my nephew that are a little bit older. And while I was there, I chatted with my sister about maybe taking a solo trip because every other time that I have visited, she has traveled with me. We've done like a girls' day, or we one time, of course, we did an episode about Namur in a different part of Belgium. And she took me there for like a stay. We did a night there and things like that. But of course, here she is. She's just had a baby. I mean, he was born the day I got there to Brussels. And so there was no way she was going to be able to get up and travel and go with me. But I'm like, here I am in Belgium again. I can't not explore a little bit and go outside of Brussels because it's been great. I've been able to do so much in Brussels in the past couple times I visited. So I thought, why don't I take a solo travel day? And Sophia, I don't know if I told you this, but this was actually the first truly solo trip I've ever taken.
No way.
Yeah,
Wait,
so
I'm so proud of you.
ah, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm proud of myself. But I've always either traveled and met someone at the location that I was going to, or I've traveled with a friend or family. So this was obviously kind of felt like an exciting and extreme version of this because I'm in a different country. And thankfully, a lot of people do speak English, but and it was only a day. I didn't stay anywhere, but it still felt kind of like this epic moment for me of like I'm going to go out and I'm going to do my thing and do it on my own.
And how did that feel? Like, did you enjoy doing the solo travel? Like, what were the kind of I liked and I didn't likes?
I, man, I'm such a social person and I really love traveling with other people because I think it's really fun to talk about with someone what you're seeing, what you're experiencing. And also, when you're traveling with someone, it's an opportunity to spend quality time together. And especially with my sister, that was always really nice because we could chat about our lives while we're on the train or, just kind of catch up about things. And so traveling on my own was quiet. It was a little quieter, but I think I learned to appreciate that as the day went on, that like I'm here with my own thoughts and I'm getting to experience something that is is unique. And of course I shared it on social media and I sent pictures to my family and friends, but it felt fun to kind of just be on my own. And because I like to talk to people, I engaged with people everywhere I went. And I didn't necessarily start conversations everywhere, but I would chat with people and I typically do that when I'm with people that I travel with, but I was more inclined to chat with the people around me and get to know them because I didn't have my own person that I was kind of exclusively conversing with.
Right. I think that's a really good point. I feel kind of the same way where like I love that like having somebody to share it with when I travel, but sometimes it's really nice to kind of travel alone because you can kind of make your own schedule, do whatever you want, and then you're kind of forced to be uncomfortable and to kind of be with your own thoughts and like, oh, this is like a me day and I'm not used to it and it was weird at first, but then you really start to enjoy it. Now, I can't do it for long periods of time. But to do like a solo day, I remember doing that once in New Orleans and it was so fun to just kind of wander around by myself and sit by the river and eat my sandwich. So, yeah, it's really kind of special in a uncomfortable way that you get used to.
Yeah, and also, I'm such a audiobook person. I had an audiobook that I was listening to while I was traveling, and that was kind of just like a nice quiet again, just quiet, I sat in the cafe, and when I wasn't chatting with people, I would put my earbud in and I would just listen to my story, and then when I was walking around, I was listening to my story, and, the story was kind of a really cool. It wasn't set in Europe necessarily, but it was kind of this fanciful thing, and so I felt like, "Oh, here I am, I'm walking around the streets of the old country," and so listening to the book kind of felt an other level of kind of epic.
Oh, I love that because you're kind of on theme. Like I remember when I went to Mexico and I would just sit quietly and like read my book and I was reading like a book about a girl in Mexico, like back in the 40s. And so it was so fun to be like, "Oh, I'm here, like in the home country, around the culture, like reading this book." So it was so fun. And I was literally like so obsessed that I was taking pictures of my book and the palm trees. Like it matches and
Oh,
got
I
a
can
little carried
say.
away. But but it was really it's kind of really neat to be able to do something like that. It's like thinking outside the box. And then even like you said, if you're sitting alone at a restaurant listening to your audiobook or reading a book or doing whatever, whether you're on the phone or you're just kind of people watching, I used to think like, oh my gosh, it's gonna be so weird. I'm gonna look like such a loser. People are gonna be like, oh, she doesn't have anyone to go to dinner with or have lunch with. And then I realized like I went and did it and I was like, this is so not weird. And like nobody's looking at me, nobody cares. I care. It's always the case, you know?
Yeah, and I think I still prefer traveling with other people, but it was a nice kind of unintentional bucket list thing. Like I don't think I would have had it on my bucket list necessarily to do a solo day, but we have had guests on recently in the last couple of months that have talked about solo traveling, and that inspired me and encouraged me to say like I'm going to do this, and I want to at least be able to say that this is a thing that I've experienced. And I would definitely do it again, especially depending on where I was going. The thing about Mechelen that I really loved is that it is perfect for a day trip. I probably wouldn't go to a place like Paris for a solo travel experience because for me, I don't know that I would want to solo travel and stay the night somewhere, but that's just my preference. But to do a day trip, I think is just the right amount of solo travel for someone like me. And I don't know how you feel about that. I know you've done more solo traveling, but it was nice to just take a day. And it was a very cold and rainy and windy day, and that's kind of how the weather was in Belgium in January in general. We didn't see the sun a lot while I was there, and of course, I picked the day that was the rainiest, coldest, and windiest because it
Oh
was
no.
overcast the whole time, but it didn't really rain while I was there. And then all of a sudden, the day that I go on this trip, it decides to rain.
Oh my gosh. That's a good point. It's hard when it's rainy weather, but going back real quick to the whole like um solo travel, staying over the night, or staying in the night, it does feel different. I've done it before, but not in Europe, like not in a foreign country. Again, like NOLA was a place that I did that like before and after friends got there. And I felt safe. I even felt safe walking, but I did not stay out late by myself. And shout out to Jamie Beebe real quick because she's the one that really inspired me. I'm like she's like climbing volcanoes in South America and meeting all these random people. And okay, she's too adventurous on the solo travel for me, in my personal opinion. I would love to do all the things she did except with one other person. And again, I think like you said, it's just kind of a personality thing. But I think like that's something that we should tell our travel brats. You guys, you can travel solo. And it's as long as you're smart about it, just don't be ignorant. There are dangerous places. There are times you should probably go back to your hotel, and times if you're in a safe place, you can stay out later and meet random people. But always just be really aware, especially if who you're meeting. Like Natalie and I, we love to, hey, how do you get to this museum and what street, and talk to people, ask people questions. But just be careful because you could be meeting the nicest person in the world that lives in next door, or you could be meeting someone that really is traveling for, alternate reasons. We'll leave it at that. But yeah, it's totally possible. It can be totally safe. You just have to be smart. But anyway, Natalie, yeah, it sounds really, really cool. The just solo day. What
Yeah,
happened?
just to piggyback off of what you said. So for those of you that didn't get to listen to the Jamie Beebe episodes and are considering a solo travel day, this episode, I'm not necessarily going to give you tips and tricks on how to like stay safe or like how to go about solo traveling necessarily, except what I experienced and what I did on this particular day. But if you want to know more about solo traveling in its essence and kind of how to go about it, especially as a single female who is solo traveling. We did episodes with her. They are season 4, 185 and 186. But I think we put her name in the episode. So if you look her up, Jamie Beebe, and she also has her own podcast. She's just awesome. And we had a lot of fun with her. So I would encourage you to go check out her episodes. And yeah, so I started my day by taking the metro from Brussels to, well, I should say I took the metro from where my sister and brother-in-law live in Brussels to the Grand Central Station in Brussels. And of course, the Grand Central Station, similar to if you think of the Grand Central Station in New York City, you take a subway there and then you get on a train that can take you to Jersey, Pennsylvania, Washington, D.C., all of these different places. So once I got to the Grand Central Station, I took a train to Mechelen, and it was a pretty short train ride. We have talked about other places in Belgium in other episodes, which I will definitely mention in a moment. And one of those is Antwerp, which is a very famous place in Belgium that probably a lot of people know, especially if they know their World War II history. And Brussels and Antwerp, Mechelen sits essentially in between the two. And it was about a 20 to 30 minute train ride from Brussels to Mechelen. And that was a nice thing too for me. I didn't want to be traveling too far. It was nice to get there quickly and then have the whole day to explore.
20 minutes is great. Yeah. That's like a pop to, for the United States, it's like a pop to the grocery store.
Truly. Yeah. I mean that it was like, oh, I'm all of a sudden here I am in another enchanting and magical little European city. And it's northeast of Brussels, and it's in the region known as Flanders. So I've already said this in previous episodes, but quick little tutorial. Flanders is the northern part of Belgium, Wallonia is the southern part, and then you have Brussels kind of more central. And Wallonia is more French speaking, and Flanders is Flemish speaking, which is a variation on Dutch. And so, if you want to know more about Flanders in particular, not only the Antwerp episode, but also the Ghent episode and the Bruges episode. So, take notes. Ghent was in season 4, episode 181. Bruges was season 3, episode 145. And Antwerp was also in season 3, episode 153, which we will put these all in the notes of the episode. So you don't have to necessarily write that down, but definitely check those out because I had such a blast visiting those places. And then in my mind, I was like, oh, I love Flanders. Yeah, I'll go to another city in Flanders. So it was great.
And feast your eyes, guys. Here's the map in case you have horrible sense of direction like I do.
So I went, as I said, in late January. And the whole place, it was so funny because January is kind of this weird month where some people still have their Christmas decorations. Some people are, kind of just decorating wintry themed. But I got off the train and everything was Valentine's. I mean, it was like everything was Valentine's themed. And they had this, like, the whole city was all about like love. And they had these just like, I don't want to call them like sculptures, but these big things that were like hearts and big signs that had like hashtag love and like all this stuff on it. And it was like everywhere. And it was really cute, but it kind of surprised me because it doesn't it doesn't really seem like a city that would necessarily have all of that.
Huh.
But I wonder if it was um the kind of thing where they were trying to get tourists in.
Right.
Like kind of like a fun way to get people in. And Mechelen, here's something that you would enjoy, Sophia. It's known for its shopping.
Ooh. Yeah.
So, of course, that is not the reason I went there. I went there to sightsee, and a lot of people that live in Brussels will go to Mechelen for the day just to shop. They'll just go for a
Wow.
shopping day
Oh, that's so fun.
and yeah. So that's a fun thing if you like shopping. I'm not the biggest shopper. It's not like my favorite thing to do. So what I wanted to do was just go and experience some specifically unique things to Mechelen. And that's what I did.
Oh, that's so fun. I would, like you, rather see the history, especially if I haven't been there before, especially if I'm not a local. But I do think if I was like staying there and I'd already been there, like I was you staying with your sister, I would totally go shopping there. But first, I definitely would like see what else there is to see or just get
Mm.
like a feel of the town and I'd be taking pictures first and going to museums and all that first. And then I'd go shopping on my
Yeah.
trip number two.
So the first place I went was the Center Market or Square, and it's also known as the Grand Place.
Ooh.
So if every little city in Europe has something like this where people would gather for social interaction, where goods would be sold, where political activities might take place, things like that. And I think you could probably imagine it in your mind's eye if you've ever seen a movie set in Europe in like the 1600s or the 1800s, you can see that square. And it's surrounded by all these really beautiful historic buildings and cafes. And so I walked around the market and then got coffee and a snack at one of the little cafes.
Oh, how cute. I absolutely love that. I love that like they do that in Latin America too. I love the like central market squares and the adorable little restaurants and just to like sit there and people watch is so much fun because that's where everybody's kind of hanging out, going through, etc.
Yes, exactly. And it was not very crowded, which I'll talk about a little later too. Again, cold, rainy day in January, not really the typical like tourist day. So I kind of felt like I had the place to myself. I mean, I definitely saw people around, but I'm walking around the market and it was mostly just me and a couple other random people here and there. So that was kind of nice to feel like this is my city, a little bit
Yeah.
of energy.
I imagine you felt kind of like a local. Now, what you said it was rainy and it was cool because it was January. Was it like really cold or like what did you wear?
So I have this like feather jacket that goes all the way down to my mid calf. And I wore that and I had an umbrella, I had my boots on, I had gloves, I had a hat. Like I had all the things. Throughout the day it got a little I don't want to say warmer because it certainly wasn't warm, but it got to the point where a couple of times it stopped raining and I didn't have to wear a hat or my umbrella. But then other moments I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so cold." So I brought some things in my book bag that I could layer on if I needed to, but my jacket is amazing and I wore a good sweater, so I was kept pretty warm.
Perfect. And I know you talked a little bit about with me before we started this episode that you visited some awesome churches.
Yes. So one thing about Mechelen is that it is known for having a lot of historical churches.
Ooh.
And of course, most of these European cities, similar to having a central market, will have their cathedrals, their, churches that, a lot of them are Catholic or Episcopal or some sort of kind of high church. And Mechelen has 7 of them. I wasn't
Oh,
able to visit all of them. I did visit 3 of them, but the main one, the most famous one, is called the St. Rumbold's Cathedral, and it is actually in the center market. And it's a Gothic cathedral. It's beautiful. They were actually doing some work on it on the siding. So, they had scaffolding up, which is pretty typical. These old churches need a lot of upkeep, but it was a highlight of Mechelen. And my favorite part of it is that it has this tower that is very, very tall, and it's the highest in Belgium, in fact. And you can climb it, and you get these panoramic views of the city. The cathedral itself is magnificent. It has like stained glass windows and all this intricate architecture, but the tower was really, really cool. And of course, I had to climb it.
you did? How long did it take you? Stat.
I took my time. I think it has over 500 steps. In fact, I'm
Wow.
looking at my notes. It says 538 steps.
And
So,
97 meters
and
tall.
97 meters tall. And yeah, so I think so what's cool about it is like you don't just climb it straight up. You can climb a certain amount and then there are levels that you can stop in and walk through. So there were about 7 or 8 levels, and so it was split up. The, 500 plus, stairs were split up by different levels. So after, maybe 70 something stairs, there'd be a little spot you could go into, and you'd be able to look at the inner workings of the tower. There was one massive spot where the bells were, and there's huge bells. I mean, insanely big. And you get to see, and they have little areas where they say information about the bells, and they have little pamphlets. And then there was one point where you could put ears on, and they would tell you about what it was like in the 1400s or the 1600s, what it was like to climb up the stairs in that time period. And so that was just really cool to be able to kind of stop at all these little areas. And then you get to the very top, and that's where the vista is. And it's completely open. So you go out on the top. Thankfully, it was not raining by the time I got to the top. So I was able to kind of walk around and actually see. It was, of course, still pretty cloudy. So I wasn't really able to see as much, but I could see the whole city of Mechelen, and it was so windy. So again, I didn't stay up there too long because I was like, "Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm gonna get blown off this tower."
Oh
But
my gosh.
they say that on a clear day, you can see all the way to Brussels, and you can see the atomium, which I talked about in our Brussels episode that we did, however many seasons ago. And it's just a really amazing structure, and it's big. I mean, when I flew back to the States from Brussels, I saw the atomium from the air, and
Wow.
that was really cool. So I just thought that was really neat that on a clear day, you could just see right through to the atomium.
Yeah, I think that's spectacular. I mean, I'm a views girly, especially with the fact that all these old like European cities, if you get like a sky view of them, they're so neat. Or like a high view of them with the tops of all the buildings. And another cool name for it, I did some digging, is called Skyline Bell. And then the fun thing about the bell ringing, the fun thing about it too is apparently Mechelen, is that how you say it? Did I do
Yeah.
it right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to try. Mechelen is the bell ringing capital of the whole world, girl. So it's home to did you see the Royal Carillon? Carillon?
No, I did not.
So, in regard to it being the royal, or the bell ringing capital of the world, it's got the Royal Carillon School, Jeff Den, the oldest and most prestigious carillon school in the world. So, if you want to learn how to play 47-ton church bells, you can go there and play them if you have extra time there and you go. So, it's kind of cool. All the churches, the old bells, this old school, it sounds really cool.
So the next place I went to is called the Great Beguinage.
Ooh.
And this is actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And the Beguinage is a peaceful and beautiful area with these really sweet cobbled streets and quaint little houses. And at one point, the area was run by nuns. And so there's like one area that was kind of like the old nunnery, but it's just so cute and it's the perfect area to just stroll around and kind of get to know the feel of the city. And I enjoy just walking around and kind of finding little pockets and the little side streets and kind of going around. It was just very, very charming. And it was actually on my way to the next thing that I had. So there was only one thing the whole day, aside from touring the tower that I had to kind of book or reserve or, pay for. The tower was like a couple euros. It wasn't anything expensive. But the big thing that I was really excited about was going to this brewery and distillery.
Oh, yummy. I love beer from Belgium.
Yeah, I mean, if you know anything about Belgium, you know that they're known for their fries, their beer, and their chocolate. And so a lot of these towns in these cities will have their own breweries, but the one in Mechelen is actually quite well known, pretty famous, and it's called Het Anker. And it's not just a brewery, it's actually also a distillery, which makes it even more unique. And I thought that was really cool. So I paid for a tour, and this was definitely the most social part of my day because the tour had 20 people on it, which I was actually pretty surprised because, as I said earlier in the episode, there were not a lot of people around when I was walking around, when I was in the market area. But when I got to the tour, people started coming because I got there a little early just to, kind of get my surroundings and chat with the tour guide. And people kept coming and people kept coming. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. And people from all over the world, which was so cool. So I got to meet all these different people. Most of them were Dutch speaking or English speaking. There were a few that were French or German, but they offer the tour in Dutch, French, and English. And the tour guide so this one, people have to list like which language they want it in. So this one was just in Dutch and English, but the tour guide would say what he wanted to say in Dutch, and then he would say the same thing in English.
Oh,
So
that's
that was
great.
yeah, it was really fun. And of course, my dad is Dutch speaking. And so I'm familiar enough with the language. I love the language. I love the sound. And, I didn't understand what he was saying, but there were little bits and pieces that I could pick up. And of course, the context is here we are in a brewery, in a distillery. We're talking about beer and whiskey. So there were some little bits and pieces that I could pick up, which was cool.
Yeah, and that's a great way to kind of switch it up. You're focusing on the food now. You've been seeing some architecture and some history, and then you can see how they do their beer. You can have a little snack, late lunch, early dinner. And just one last thing, going back to the UNESCO World Heritage Site that you saw. Um, for those of you who do not know, because I realize, I appreciate you guys. I know there are some people who may not know what a UNESCO World Heritage Site is. So, quick synopsis on that. It is a landmark or area recognized by the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, UNESCO, as having outstanding culture, historical, scientific, or natural significance. So basically, these sites are legally protected by international treaties and are considered important to the collective interests of humanity. So anyway, kind of cool. There's a bunch in Italy. Machu Picchu would be another example. Colosseum in Rome, pyramids of Egypt. So really cool historic special sites. So these are places you want to hit when you go see these old cities.
For sure. Thank you. I appreciate that little lesson because I think
You're
that's really
welcome.
important. When we think of Machu Picchu being a UNESCO World Heritage Site, that's so epic in our minds. And then to have a place like this be also included in that, I think is so special. And obviously a very different experience than hiking up to Machu Picchu, but
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. And I thought it was definitely, as you said, a very important kind of slice of historical significance in this city. And so yeah, what was for me, I packed a lunch. So you're speaking about food now. I packed a lunch so that I could treat myself to different snacks. So, of course, I went and had coffee and had a little snack. And then I knew that I wanted to enjoy a really nice dinner. So, I'm like, I'm going to save my money for a really nice dinner out. And in fact, my sweet boyfriend, Matt, actually ended up paying for my dinner. He sent me some money and paid for my
Aw,
dinner. So, that was
long
really
distance
sweet
love.
of him. I know. So then I actually used what I had saved for dinner to buy some beer at the end of the tour, which was fun. So I loved this tour, and it was like almost 2.5 hours. I
Wow.
mean, they really went in depth and really showed us the process of how whiskey is made, how their beer is made. And I would like, you've got to go. If you go to Mechelen, this is my top suggestion. You've got to go to this brewery. It was just so cool. And aside from getting to interact with some people and meeting people from other places, I just loved learning about this and seeing all the behind the scenes of this stuff. And the beer and whiskey that they make is so the brewery is called Het Anker, but the actual brand of the beer and the whiskey is called Golden Carolus. So if you've ever had a Golden Carolus beer, then you know what what that's from now. And it's delicious. I really enjoyed the flavors and had never really understood the process of distilling whiskey and making beer and all of that. So it was just really fun. And the tour ended with us being able to, yeah, try the whiskey. And then we got to go try some beer. And then they gave us a complimentary glass to go with our beer at the end that we got to take with us. And so that was just a really unique experience for me. And I enjoyed the cultural aspects of that as well.
Yeah, totally fun, totally worth it. It's one of those things too that most everybody would like because most everybody likes beer, especially Americans. Most everybody will relate to it. And then it's just a fun thing to do for, young, old, middle-aged. Anybody can relate and have a good time. I do think it's really interesting, like you said. I have not been to this one, obviously, but I've been to other like distillery tours for like whiskey,
Mhm.
rum,
Yeah.
beer, and it's really fun to see like the inner workings of the process because it actually is so cool. It's stuff you don't think about too when you're just like drinking a beer. I wonder how this was made, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally fun. Now, where did you go to eat dinner?
So they have a restaurant connected. It's really cool. The Het Anker Brewery and Distillery is like this whole facility. And so they have, a gift shop, they have an area where you can just walk around. Obviously, they have the distillery and the brewery that you tour. And then they have this gorgeous restaurant that's connected to it. And something that I know I've talked about in previous episodes is Flemish stew. It's
Oh,
so good. And especially at this time of year on a cold, rainy day, I was just craving it. And Flemish stew, a lot of stews are made with either a wine or a beer base in whatever the sauce is, or maybe the meat is marinated in some sort of beer or wine, kind of marinate. And so this Flemish stew is made with the beer from the brewery, from Het Anker.
oh,
So
how cool.
yeah, so I was like drinking a beer from the brewery and I was eating Flemish stew. And I mean, the flavor was amazing. And the meat was just like, it just pulls apart. It's just,
Oh,
oh, it's so good. And so I really enjoyed that. And it was definitely, like you said, an experience of like, I'm sitting at this restaurant by myself and that feels a little weird. But the staff were so kind to me and they all were just like, yeah, I just felt like I was really being like treated very nicely. And I'm sure everyone there was being treated very nicely because it was a really nice establishment. But it just felt like part of the experience of the brewery. And I wanted to continue the night with that. And the Flemish stew was the perfect way to end a cold but really fun and educational day.
Yeah, look at you. Ended your fun and educational day with double fisting between your soup and your beer.
That's right. Exactly. And then I had to because I love when I go to a city like this, there's always a river, there's always a canal, there's always something like that. And so I thought, well, I've got to walk back to the train station and I could go through the city like I did coming in, or I could walk along the river. And so I decided to walk along the river. It's called the River Dial. And I kid you not, I was the only person on that river. And it was like probably a 45-minute walk.
Wow.
Th no one out, and at this point, it was probably like, 8 o'clock at night, very dark, here we are in the middle of winter. At this point, I was like, "I'm so cold, I gotta get home." But I also just really enjoyed feeling again like I had the place to myself, and
Yeah.
the river and all the homes along the river, just kind of getting a peek into
Mm.
what life is like in a city like this for a modern human living amongst all of this very rich history and these old, old buildings and kind of seeing some of the newer buildings mixed in with the older buildings. And so yeah, it was just a really sweet way to end the day. And then I hopped on the train and headed back to Brussels and was cozy in my bed, I think by probably 10 o'clock.
Wow, that's cool. And talk about it feeling like your city, really, when you're just walking along and there's not a lot of other people. Plus, those like night views of the city are so fun because they're so different. But then you have like the lights shining on the water, and it's like a
Mhm.
different pretty, you know? Well, guys, to close, that was Natalie's spectacular day in Mechelen. And we just wanted to shout out a few more fun facts if you guys are interested in checking out Mechelen, Belgium. And we, again, highly recommend you check out our episodes on not just Mechelen, this one, but, Antwerp, Bruges. But also, if you guys are interested in hearing more, let's start with some fun facts. So, for canals, Mechelen, again, don't forget, has its low key, really beautiful canal system. It's perfect for chilly boat rides or relaxing summer boat rides. And then again, like Natalie said, you can just see this beautiful historic city with UNESCO World Heritage sites and that old infrastructure.
Yeah, for sure. And it also this is a really interesting thing for me because of the fact that my family hails from the Netherlands, is that back in the 16th century, Mechelen was briefly the capital of the Netherlands. Now, granted, this is not the Netherlands that we know of today, and if you know even anything slightly about European history, you know that borders were constantly changing. It's like every country that exists now was probably made up of half of another country at another time or those kinds of things. So modern day Netherlands, I don't think Mechelen was ever officially a part of, but at some point Mechelen was the capital of what was called the Netherlands in the 16th century and under the rule of Margaret of Austria. So Austria was Austria-Hungary. Austria was a big deal back then, but it had its moment of royal glory.
I love that. Now, for you travel brats that have kiddos and would love to do all these fun things, but, feel like, oh, is there anything the kids aren't going to be like boring? So, this city loves kids. It brands itself as the kid-friendly city with towns with tons of parks, interactive museums, and events for whole family. Kids are gonna love it. It even has a zoo called Plackendale. I probably totally butchered that, but anyway, look for it, Plackendale. Nearby, read the blog, guys. And it's a huge hit. So you guys don't feel like you can't bring kids here. It's fun for the whole family to learn history and enjoy the beauty.
Yeah, and an extension of that I didn't realize, and again, as an adult who isn't really a toy person as an adult, I know like there are some adults that really love toys, and there are more, there
I'm
are like
laughing because I love dolls still. Like I will never grow up. I'm a
yes,
Toys R Us
I
kid.
mean, of course, who doesn't? And when I go into a toy store, I'm just like, "Oh, this is amazing. I love it." But I will say that a toy store isn't necessarily my go-to. Now, a toy museum, however, I think would be a little bit more my speed. And I didn't realize this, but Mechelen has a toy museum, and it's one of Europe's biggest toy museums. Like,
That's so
I
cool.
don't know how I missed that, but apparently Europe's biggest toy museum. One of, maybe not the biggest, but if you like toys and you're in Mechelen, and especially as you said with kids, I think that could be a really fun way to have the kids enjoy their time in Mechelen. And maybe, you could send the kids to the museum and the adults can do the brewery.
Right. And for fun, before we close out, I just want to torture you guys one last time by trying to sound out the name of this toy museum. Spulgut mu ya za Spluga Yuja Umzum. So go check it out. Look up. Don't look that up. Don't hurt yourself. Just look up the toy museum in Mechelen, and it'll be the first thing that pops up because it's famous. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning into Natalie's solo day. Natalie, I'm so glad you did a solo day. You loved it, and you got to explore the beautiful city of Mechelen, Belgium. Catch you guys
Yay.
next time.
Bye.